All right, and we are recording. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to this information session for ACAP psychology courses. My name is John Rees. I am a professor of psychology here at ACAP. I am located on the Melbourne campus, but I teach students across all campuses of ACAP. ACAP is a very multi-city national institution. We have campuses in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane and Perth where we teach psychology. And I'm located in Melbourne. Forgive me if I'm a little bit croaky tonight. I am recovering from a bit of a cold, but I am going to talk to you this evening about the psychology courses that we have here at ACAP with a particular emphasis, on the undergraduate programs, but I will also talk a little bit about the honours and the postgraduate programs as well. Now, because we have quite a number of participants here, we've got over 80 participants already. I have muted everybody. I've forced everybody to mute, and I'm not allowing people to unmute because you can imagine how out of control that would get if we actually let people sort of talk with all the background noise. So you can't unmute yourself, and you can't contribute in a audible way, but you can most definitely type queries into the chat box, which we would encourage you to do. We have some ACAP course advisors who are monitoring the chat, and they will answer all of your chat questions as you pose them. So please do at any time feel very, very free to post your questions in the chat, and one of the advisors who is currently online with us this evening will answer that question for you straight away. As you can probably see, I am most definitely not presenting this on an ACAP campus. I am at home. I am doing this via Zoom from home. The great joy of doing Zoom, I've got two crazy dogs running around like lunatics. They've just been fed, but they're sort of got their post-feeding frenzy going, so they might be running in and interrupting things. So if I have to lean over and shut the door and tell them to shut up, you'll know exactly what that's all about. You can probably hear one of them barking in the background right now, probably terrorizing the cat. So do forgive me if I have to do that at some point during the presentation. I will probably take about half an hour to do the presentation, and then I've got until 8 o'clock just to quickly go through the chat and answer any questions that you might have of an academic nature. Remember, I am an academic. I'm not an administrator, so I can't answer questions of an administrative nature for you, but I can certainly answer any questions that you might have of an academic nature, okay? Which I'm very, very happy to do. So I will cherry pick some of the questions, answer those for you, and see whether we can make this a useful session for you. But most of all, thank you very much for zooming in to tonight's session. We really appreciate your interest. We really appreciate the fact that you're sacrificing this time of the evening to come along to this session and to listen to what we've got to tell you. Okay, so let's get straight into the presentation. There we go. All right. So first of all, ACAP's been around for a long time. So it's been around since 1983, teaching a range of different courses in a range of different areas. It is a national provider. It's part of a larger organisation called Navitas. It's the branch of Navitas is a multinational education provider, a huge player in the private education sector, founded in Australia, in Perth, some time ago, and it has an arm that teaches and presents university-type degrees and university-type courses, and that's what ACAP presents. It's a national provider. We've got campuses in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and now Byron Bay, although psychology is taught in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth. We don't teach psychology in Adelaide as yet, or in Byron Bay as yet, but obviously that's something for the future. ACAP teaches courses in psychology, counselling, criminology, and social work. There are also other areas as well, but its core interest is in psychology, counselling, criminal, and social work. And we've got 13,000 graduates. And ACAP really is one of the major players in private higher education in the country. Okay, so here's the deal. Psychology, you can take psychology anywhere. There are 40 universities in this country everyone teaches psychology, apart from maybe one. Everyone teaches undergraduate psychology. Here in my state of Victoria, there are 7 universities. They all teach undergraduate psychology. So why would you come to ACAP? If you can go and do psychology anywhere, why would you come and study psychology with us? It's not as though you can't do it anywhere else. You can do it everywhere. So what's our point of difference? It's not as though we're teaching something that you can't get anywhere else. So why come to us? Look, there are some features of ACAP that we think distinguish it as a quality provider. One is the small classes. We really do offer very small classes at ACAP. For example, lectures, my lectures, even my first year lectures on campus may have no more than about 50 people. Shoots we cap at about 25 people. There may be many, many more online, but in terms of on-campus classes, most shoot classes are less than 25 students. That's the cap. And for those that have on-campus lectures, there are very few on-campus lectures, they are also quite limited in size as well. So you can sort of imagine what that does, by having those small classes, we get to know you, you get to know us. And one of the things that we emphasize very strongly is the idea of personalized learning, really get to know the students and be very, very student-centric. One of the things about ACAP is that it is a very student-centric institution. I'm a career psychology academic. I did my undergraduate and PhD at La Trobe and worked there as an academic. I've also worked at RMIT and the University of Melbourne. So I've got some good understanding about working in different higher education sectors. And one of the things that really stands out to me about ACAP is that it is so very student focused. It is very oriented towards providing students with an excellent student learning experience. So I think that's the thing that we really try to emphasize in what we offer. We have teachers who work as psychologists. We have teachers who work as counselors and as social workers who teach into the programs. In the one of our degrees, the degree that's the double major in psychology and counselling, we have student placements. That's the only degree, the only undergraduate psychology degree that has placements. There are no placements in our other undergraduate degrees, but in the double major with counselling, we do. All of our degrees are fully accredited by the accrediting bodies. There is a national accrediting body called APAC, don't confuse it, APAC, the Australian Psychology Accreditation Council. That body accredits all higher education psychology programs in the country. We have to be accredited with them. We went through our accreditation exercise last year in 2020. A lot of fun doing that in the middle of COVID, but we did it. We passed with flying colours. Our degrees are all accredited. In fact, our degrees were very, very highly commended by the ACAP visiting team. We have 3 intakes a year in February, June and September. So we have multiple intakes. We run on trimesters rather than semesters. So it's 3 intakes. In terms of fees, most eligible students, most eligible domestic students can get fee help, which means you don't have to pay anything up front. You get a student loan, which is paid back in exactly the same way as HECS is paid back. So you don't pay a cent up front, you get a student loan, and then you only pay that back once you start earning a certain amount of income through the tax system. So there's no need to pay upfront fees at all. You can if you want to. There's no need to pay upfront fees at all. You get fee help to support you, which is basically, as I said, almost exactly the same as HECS. The only difference is that the amount is higher because there's no government subsidy. The fee help loan is completely driven by you and your educational needs, and you pay that back through the tax system once you start earning a certain amount of money once you complete. Okay, so no upfront, fee help only. The other thing that's not mentioned here, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is the flexibility. ACAP is a very, very flexible institution that offers you on-campus learning, online learning, and a mixture of the two. Now, it's not the case that every single thing in every single term is offered everywhere on campus online. I mean, there are limits to resources and so on, but as a general rule, we do what we can within the resources that we have to offer students the flexibility of online and on-campus instruction. And the online is 100% equivalent to the on-campus. It is exactly the same, it costs the same because the learning outcomes are the same. And we have students who do their entire degrees fully online, all the way through to honours, fully online. We have students who do most of it on campus, but the overwhelming majority of students do a mix of the two. And sometimes they have to, because there are some units they want to do that simply aren't available on campus, and they have to do them online. But there is a lot of flexibility. All of these support mechanisms and structures that are available to students anywhere in the university system are available at ACAP. We have a very good understanding about the nature of our students. We know that we have a lot of students who come to return to study. They may have studied a long time previously. They may never have studied in higher education at all. They may have good experience. They may have just recently come from university. They may have never set foot in a university. So we know that we have a very diverse student body. We know what students are coming in with, and we know the supports that they need. So we have a lot of support systems set up with our wonderful student learning support people, and the academics themselves have a very strong awareness of this, and they're able to make sure that you get the necessary support, the necessary direction, the necessary instruction that you need to get the most out of your learning experience. As I said, one of the things that really is very strong within ACAP is diversity and an acceptance of diversity. We have a number of support services available for students from diverse backgrounds, and that includes the Ally Network. The Ally Network is a network set up to provide support for students who are part of the LGBTIQA+ community. And we promote that very, very strongly as being an inclusive, safe and supportive environment for students from all forms of background, cultural backgrounds and gender backgrounds and other background variations as well. Okay, so how do you study here at ACAP? You can choose the way you study. One of the things that really distinguishes ACAP is we do offer trimesters, 3 13-week terms. We don't have semesters. There are full and part-time options, and you can move between the two. You can start full and go part. You can start part and go full. You've got flexibility around that. We offer on-campus and online and a mixture of the two. And we have classes that are available morning, afternoon, and evening. So, for example, if you are a full-time worker and a full-time caregiver and you can only study in the evening, you can most definitely do that. If you're a person who doesn't have those responsibilities and you prefer to study during business hours, there's the option to do that as well. So there is a lot of flexibility in the way we offer our different programs. And like I said, most psychology students will do a mix of the two. They will do some stuff online, they'll do some stuff on campus. It just varies on where they live and their individual circumstances, but we do like to give them those alternatives. Of course, any on-campus offerings are very much dictated by available resources for staffing, available resources for class size. So what might happen, for example, is we may schedule an on-campus class, but we don't get many students actually enroll in it and want to do it. We found that post-COVID. We found post-COVID that the number of students who wanted to go back on campus was actually quite reduced. They preferred the online option. So if an on-campus class that's timetable doesn't attract an appropriate number of students, we obviously can't run it. We can't run classes that have got 1 or 2 students in it because it's just not financially viable. So we will move students into an online option under those circumstances. But we'll try to give you plenty of warning if that's going to happen. We let you know that that's an option right from day one. And then if that does happen, we try and work with you to give you the best alternative that you can work with. So when we talk about blended delivery, it's not really a term we use much in psychology. It's more a term that's used for the counselling units. But if I think about a psychology student, you might have a student, for example, who watches an online lecture, but they come on campus for a shoot. They might even come on campus for a lecture and do an online shoot. They might do both online. They might do both on campus. So there is a mixture of the two. There's a whole mixture of different ways of receiving your material and doing it in a way that is most facilitative of your own particular learning desires. Okay, so what is psych? First of all, let me make one thing really, really clear for you. The undergraduate psychology units and the undergraduate psychology courses and the honours courses, they are not courses in being a psychologist. They are not courses in the skills of psychological practice. That's not what they're about. They are science courses. They're courses that will teach you about the discipline of psychology as an area of scientific investigation. In psychology, the skills-based training comes at the postgraduate level. It doesn't happen at undergraduate. It doesn't happen in honours. You do get a little bit of it, but it's not the way it works. The core, the essence, the real substance of undergraduate and honours level psychology is all about learning the scientific nature of psychology as a discipline of investigation. So psychology is the scientific study of the human mind of behaviour. It's a science, and the ACAP courses are science-based, and they're all accredited courses in psychology in Australia. So yes, there is stuff about research, there is the dreaded statistics, there is a whole lot of that sort of stuff, but it's not everything. You know, there's a lot of other content that is much more, well, you know, maybe you find statistics interesting. There's a lot of other content around that that really embraces the diversity of psychology as an area. Excuse me. So why do people study psychology? What's the driver? Look, at the end of the day, people study psychology because they're interested. They're interested in human behaviour, they're interested in mental activity, and they're interested in becoming some sort of practitioner that will help people in a psychological type area. So it's inherently interesting. If we look at some of the classic studies of psychology, Milgram's incredibly famous, controversial obedience to authority study, where Milgram demonstrated that 65% of people would deliver what they believe to be lethal electric shocks to total strangers simply because somebody in a white laboratory coat with clipboard told them to do so. Okay? Incredibly relevant, important historical study in the discipline of psychology that taught us so much about social actions, obedience to authority, and human behaviour. We learn all about that. Okay? In fact, I do taster sessions where we focus on that study in particular. We learn about memory. We learn about how easy it is to manipulate people's memory. This is a shot of the famous Loftus car crash studies, which demonstrated how easy it was to manipulate people's memories by planting false memories, by getting them to recall events by using certain prompting terms and words. And it really cast into doubt the accuracy, the validity, the usefulness of eyewitness testimony in legal settings, and has led to an enormous change in how we see the validity of eyewitness testimony in courtroom scenarios. And the famous Zimbardo prison experiment, where Philip Zimbardo from Stanford University back in the 60s took a group of first-year and undergraduate university psychology students, put them into a mock prison environment where half of the students were given the role of guards, half the students were given the role of prisoners, and he wanted to find out in a social psychological context what would happen when people took on the roles of guard and prisoner. It was a study that was meant to go for 2 weeks. Eventually, it was cancelled after 5 days because, to put it bluntly, everybody got too into it. And it was an enormously controversial study for ethical reasons and for a whole lot of other reasons, which we study in first year. We study it from a social psychological point of view. We study it from an ethical point of view. So these are just a little taste of some of the big areas of psychology, some of the questions that we really look at when we study the scientific nature of human behavior and mental activity. And what happens when you have 90% of your brain missing? One of the areas of psychology that has really exploded over the last 25 years has been a real understanding about the relationship between brain and behaviour. And the technology that's been developed in that area has given us extraordinary insight into the relationship between mental activity, behaviour, and how that relates to certain brain structure and function. Here's a case of a person who a CAT scan demonstrated actually had literally 90% of their brain missing, and yet was apparently functioning quite normally, quite well. How can that be? Okay, and we learn all about that. So that gives you an area, a bit of a taster about the types of things that we do study in psychology. Now, of course, a lot of people get into psychology because they want to help other people, and that's laudable. That's we need people to be approaching the area with that sort of that attitude. Depression, for example, we know that depression is the single leading cause of disability around the world. More than 300 people experience depression. Over 250 million people live with anxiety disorders in the world, and psychologists are right at the cutting edge of doing research in this area and in doing helping skills in this area, doing therapy, interventions and programs to assist people living with depression and anxiety and helping them deal with those particular conditions. Okay, so that's another key area. Look, to become a psychologist, it's a big job. Okay, it's a big area. It's a big task. If you look at it in terms of standard classic full-year study, it's a 6-year exercise. You need to do an undergraduate bachelor's type degree with a psychology major. Normally that's 3 years. You then 3 years full-time. You then need to do a 4th year of study, such as an honours year, and it is competitive to get into the honours year, which we'll talk about later. You then need to do the professional training, and there are 3 ways that you can do that. By the time you guys get there, there'll only be 2 ways that you can do that because one of them is shutting down. There's a model by which you do 2 years of supervised work experience. That's shutting down in the middle of next year. So you're looking at further study. The 2 common areas of further study are to do a 2-year master's in a specialized area of psychology or a 1-year master's in general psychological practice, followed by a 1-year internship. So anyway you look at it, it's a 6-year pathway to be registered as a psychologist in Australia. Psychology is a protected title. It is a registered profession. You cannot call yourself a psychologist unless you are registered with the Psychology Board of Australia, which is part of AHPRA. That is a legal requirement. And the Psychology Board of Australia sets down the rules for what registered psychologists, what education levels and training registered psychologists must have, okay? That will get you general registration. Then to get specialist registration, you need to do further study, further training, and that might take you another 2 years. So it is a lengthy process, but it does mean that when you get there, you are superbly trained and you are very, very well equipped to work as a psychologist, either as a general psychologist or as one of these specialist areas, such as clinical psychology, forensic psychology, and so on. And we talk about this in first year. We have a couple of classes where we actually talk about the pathways of training and what it takes to become a psychologist in Australia. By the way, you can get this information on the Australian Psychological Society website, and you can also get it on the Psychology Board of Australia website if you want to get some more information on how to become a psychologist. But you can also email me, and I'll give you my email address at the end of the session. So if you've got any questions about it, you're very welcome to contact me with any questions you might have. Okay, as I said, there used to be a pathway whereby after doing 4 years, you could do a 2-year on-the-job internship. We called it the 4+2 pathway, where you receive training on the job. That will be retired. So in the middle of next year, on the 30th of June 2022, there will be no more entry into that pathway. So for you people who are starting off your studies, that pathway will not be available for you, okay? But there will be lots of other options for postgraduate training, particularly in what we call the 5+1 model, which is the 1-year master's in general psychological practice, followed by the 1-year internship. That's a very growing pathway. ACAP was in fact the first provider in the country to actually offer that pathway. We got in at the ground floor. Now there are about 30 universities that offer that particular pathway. Okay, so as I said, why study psychology at ACAP? Look, we can give you the whole run through your professional training. We can go from bachelor's through to master's level, but please do be aware that at the moment, the master's is only available in Sydney. Now, whether postgraduate offerings are offered at a more national level, that is planned, but it's currently not available. Okay, so it's currently only in Sydney. Our programs are fully accredited, and as I said, you can study it online, on campus with a mix, and we have a very, very welcoming and diverse student body made up of school leavers, vet students who are articulating, mature age students, career changers, people who want to come back to study. We welcome everybody with open arms, okay? One of the things that really bugs me about teaching psychology is that people come into a psychology degree with a thought that the only people who should be doing this degree are people who are wanting to become psychologists. And that is absolutely so not true, because a psychology degree is a fabulous generalist degree that can give you skills and attributes that you can use in a whole stack of further study and job-related areas. The skills you pick up in a psychology degree are marketable for future study areas and future work areas in so many different locations. Look at it, human behavior, applying psychological principles to personal, social, group issues, planning, implementing and evaluating research, critical thinking, effective communication, acting professionally with ethical frameworks. You can use those sorts of skills and attributes in stacks of different jobs and in stacks of different future areas. Even if you don't go any further in psychology, a psychology undergraduate degree sets you up beautifully for future study in areas like counselling, in social work, in human resources, in rehabilitation, in working with the NDIS, in teaching, in HR, in sales, in all sorts of different areas. A psychology program sets you up beautifully, okay? So don't think of this as just something to do as a way to become a psychologist. Sure, if you want to become a psychologist, you've got to do it. But think of it more broadly than that. Think of your undergraduate psychology degree as giving you a great platform for a whole lot of different areas and different areas of study and work. So what do we offer here at ACAP? So at the undergraduate level, we've got 3 bachelor's degrees. We've got the Bachelor of Psychological Science, and we have 2 double majors. We've got a double major in criminology and a double major in counselling. Now, let me emphasize one thing very, very strongly. The psychology in all of those degrees is identical. You do exactly the same psychology in every one of those degrees. What differs is what you do outside of the psychology units. Okay, really important to know. So you can enter those at all 3 terms. We also offer honours, okay? And for those of you who have a degree, for those of you who have already got a bachelor's degree, we've got graduate diploma. We've got a graduate diploma in psychological science and the graduate certificate, and I'll talk about those a little later on, about how they differ. Okay, so what can you do with a psych degree? As I said, you can build in areas where all sorts of those attributes that I mentioned are valued. Knowledge of human behaviour, knowledge of mental states, clear communication, ethical practice, research skills, and so on. There's a list, a very simple list of areas where you can work. Health and social welfare, social policy and research, human services, disability, ageing, mental health, juvenile justice. The NDIS. The NDIS is an enormous employer of psychology graduates. So even if you just get an undergraduate degree and go no further, you've still got some great skills that are very marketable out there in the world. Okay, so our undergraduate courses, we'll talk about these in a minute. So how to get in. There's a brief screening interview. If you're 21 years or over. So basically the entry requirements are pretty broad. Okay, participation in a screening interview, online or by phone. If you haven't got a secondary school certificate, like an ATAR, don't worry. If you're 21 years or over date of commencement, if you've studied somewhere else, lots and lots and lots of pathways. Speak to the course advisors, speak to the marketing people, speak to the enrollment people. They will let you know whether you've got the adequate background to get in, but it's very, very open. Now, in psychology, there's a number of different ways that we deliver the material. The core of it is around our 1.5-hour tutorials. Every unit has a 1.5-hour tutorial class on campus or online. That's got the small numbers, less than 25 or 25 or less, and that's really the core of each unit. Now, there's also material that you do, there's also learning that you do before that and after that. So before that, there might be lectures. Those lectures may be live on-campus lectures, which you're not obliged to attend, by the way. You can view the recording if you like. They're all fully recorded. There may not be lectures. There may be online activities. There may be guided reading. There may be a whole lot of different things. Post the tutorial, again, there's a whole range of different things that you do. There'll be online quizzes, and there'll be other blog posts and other sorts of activities. So there's basically pre-tutorial material, the tutorial, and post-tutorial material. That's the way we structure all of our units in psychology. And what happens pre-tutorial, it differs, it varies from course to course. In the first year courses, the first year units, we actually have live lectures, 2-hour weekly on-campus lectures that are also Zoom streamed all around the country and recorded. But outside of second year, we don't have those live lectures. They may be recorded lectures. They may be short lectures. They may be lecturettes. They may be online things. They may be guided reading. They may be a combination of all of the above. Okay, so there's a whole mixture of different types of things which you'll learn about when you start off. Okay, let's talk about the Bachelor of Psych Science. The Bachelor of Psych Science was our first degree, and it's made up of basically 10 core psychology units. So there's 10 core units in psychology. You do 11 electives, and you do 3 what are called MALT units. These are multidisciplinary units that everybody at ACAP has to do. So 10 core psychology units, 3 MALT units, and 11 electives. Now, the electives can be in counselling, they can be in criminology, they can be in social welfare, and in psychology, we also offer electives. So there's 4 different types of electives, and you can do any combination of them, provided you've got the prerequisites. So there's a lot of flexibility there. In terms of assessments, all sorts of assessments. It says there, submission of 2 assessments and completing an exam. Not all of the units actually have exams anymore. Okay, so the first and second year units tend to have exams, but not all of them have exams. Some of the third year units, in fact, most of the third year units don't have exams. Some of them got more than 2 assignments, maybe 3 assignments during the term. There might be 2 assignments and an exam, or 3 assignments, and there's all sorts of different types of assignments. There's research reports, there's essays, there's presentations, there's reflective exercises, there's a whole stack of different types of things. It's very, very diverse in terms of the submission. So if you do a psychology degree, you're going to do a whole lot of different types of things and develop a whole lot of different skills in that area. It's not just going to be whole stacks of multiple choice exams. Like I said, some units have exams, the first year units have exams, most of the second year units have exams, but most of the third year units do not have exams. They're more based around written assessment because they're sort of leading you more into we're trying to develop what we call competencies, sorry, block nose. And those competencies are really assessed better using written work rather than exam work. So there's a bit of a change in that area. We also have a strong emphasis on cultural issues. That is a thread that goes throughout all of our units. And there's also discussion. There's also material that's around things like group work, around presentation skills, and so on. So the courses have changed. They used to be very knowledge-based. Now they're a combination of knowledge and competency-based. So there is a movement in that area. Okay, we also have a double major with criminology. Now, there are no electives in this. So what you do, it's a set structure. You do the 10 core psych units, you do the 3 mults, and you do 11 specially selected criminology units. The psych is identical to what you would do. So if you're in a tute or a class, you'll be in with a whole mix of students who are doing Bachelor of Psych Science, Bachelor of Psych Science with Crim, Bachelor of Psych Science with Counselling. Okay, the psych is the same. So this is a very popular degree. This is a very, very, very attractive degree because a lot of people are interested in forensics and criminology. So this combines those 2 areas. You get the psychology and you get the 11 criminology. The final bachelor's degree we've got is the double major with counselling. Now that is made up of 10 core psychology units, the same 10, 8 counselling units, and 3 multidisciplinary units. So that's it. There's 20. Oh, sorry, that's wrong. Those numbers are wrong. My apologies. That should be adding up to 24. In fact, that's 11 counselling units and 3 multidisciplinary units. So forgive me, that's a typo. So it should be 10 core psychology units, 11 counselling units, and 3 mult units. So I haven't updated that. My apologies. This is a very attractive degree for a lot of people because it gives them what a lot of people see as the best of both worlds. Now, this one does have a placement. The counselling units do have a placement, which we help you with. The difference between this and the other degrees is that in the counselling units, you actually learn hands-on practical counselling skills day 1, week 1. Now, you don't get that in the psych, but you get it in the counselling. Okay, you actually learn to be a counsellor as part of this. And in fact, when you finish this degree, you are eligible for membership with the professional bodies that are the peak bodies for counselling in this country. I'm talking about PACFA, okay, which is a peak body it's a peak professional body for counsellors in Australia. You are eligible for membership for PACFA when you complete this degree. Okay, so you are actually a qualified counsellor when you finish this degree. So even if you go no further with psychology, you can actually work as a counsellor after completing this degree. So this is a very attractive degree for a lot of people because, as I said, in the counselling side of things, you do a placement and you learn counselling skills day 1, week 1, unit 1. Okay, not in psych, but you do in the counselling. Very attractive degree for a lot of people. If you do well, if you get a distinction average in your psychology core units, okay, I'll say that again, a distinction average in your psychology core units, you will get invited into the honours program in psychology. The honours program is not automatic. It is competitive and it is quota-based. So you need to have a certain level of academic performance to be invited into the honours program. And at the moment, that is a distinction average in your core psychology units over that 3 years. Now, the minimum is a credit, but that's just not true because realistically, it's a distinction, realistically, okay? That's what we've been looking at, and that's been the cutoff over the last few entries, and we're anticipating that will be the entry cutoff for a few entries to come. The honours degree is made up of 50% research, 50% coursework. It can be done fully online, okay, as well as on campus. And it has entry at 3 parts of the year, at 3 points during the year. So you've got the coursework and the research project, and it has changed over the last couple of years. It's now more competency-based, but there's still 50% for the research, 50% for the coursework. Okay, that's what done. You do an independent research project working independently with one staff member, one academic on a proper full-on research project. You do it from start to finish. You run the whole thing. Okay, ethics application, the whole works. It's your baby. That's your research project. You work one-on-one with a research supervisor. Plus, you do a range of coursework study that will develop a whole range of competencies and skills that will complement you for further postgraduate study or further postgraduate work. So it can be done full or part-time. It can be done full or part-time. It can be done completely online, okay? It can be done on campus or a mixture of the two. And there is entry points at 3 points during the year. So you can apply to get into honours at first, second, or third term. So we're one of the few places that offers a completely online honours, and we're one of the few places that offers that multiple entry points into the honours program. Okay, now let me talk about these graduate diplomas, because these are really interesting degrees. So let's say that you have a bachelor's degree. You've got a bachelor's degree in anything, okay, at any point, okay, but you've got a bachelor's degree. Doesn't have to be psychology, anything at all right? So you don't have to do a whole nother bachelor's degree to get your psych qualifications, okay? Now, let me go down 2 paths here. Let's imagine that in your bachelor's degree, you did some psychology. You did some APAC accredited psychology. You might have done a year or 2 or even a whole degree, okay? So you did that, and you did it within the last 10 years, all right? So you've got a bachelor's degree, it had some psychology, and you did it in the last 10 years. You can do something called the Graduate Diploma in Psychological Science. Now, the Graduate Diploma in Psychological Science is just the psychology units, no electives, just the psychology units. So because you've done some psychology in your previous study, you don't need to do the first year. You jump straight into second year, and you do 9 units, okay? A second and third year units, right? So you do just those, no electives. So you can do that in a year and a half, a year and a term, full time, if you want to. 3, 3, 3, 3. You can do it in a year and a term. You can technically do it in a year, but it's really, really hard. I don't know anybody that's actually done it. Most people take a year and a term, but most people doing that are part-time students. They're full-time workers. They've got care responsibilities, lots of other balls to juggle. So they spread it out. They take their time to do it. Okay. Now, let's imagine second pathway. You've done a bachelor's degree, but you had no psych, okay? Or the psych was done like 20 years ago, okay? Like really, or it wasn't APAC accredited. So this is the second pathway. Right, you can't jump straight into the graduate diploma. What you have to do first is something called the Graduate Certificate of Psychological Science. Now, what's that? It's 4 units, right? And it's made up of the 2 first-year psychology units, right? Second-year research methods in psychology, and 1 of the MALT units. So you do those 4 units, okay? If you pass those, you get into the graduate diploma, all right? So that's for people who have got a bachelor's degree, no psych, or they did it a long time ago. You start off by doing the Graduate Certificate in Psychological Science. Now, the Graduate Certificate, even if you go no further, you might decide after doing the grad cert that you don't like psych, it's not for you. Okay, fine. At least you get something out of that, right? You get a degree, you get the Graduate Certificate of Psychological Science, okay, which, yeah, you've got something, you've got a piece of paper, you've got a degree there. So, 2 pathways. One for people that have got a bachelor's degree with some psych, and it was done in the last 10 years. The second one for people who have got a bachelor's degree, no psych, or it was done ages ago, all right? One group can jump straight into the grad dip. The other group have got to do the grad cert first, okay? Grad cert first. So this is the grad cert. And the grad dip, right, is made of those second and third year psychology units. Now, they are called advanced versions of those units. What does that mean? What it means is that because you are seen as a postgraduate student, you can't do the undergraduate units, right? You're not permitted to do that. So you have to do advanced versions of those undergraduate units. So look, it's really simple. Like, for example, we might have a subject called cognitive psychology for the bachelor students and cognitive psychology advanced for the grad dip students. What's the difference? Okay, first of all, same lectures. Okay, same lectures. Same shoots. Okay, same lectures, but different shoots, different assessments. Okay, so we distinguish between the two by the shoot classes and the assessments. Grad dip students have to do slightly advanced level assessments, right? Because they are seen as slightly advanced level students. Okay, but you know, it's very, very similar, very, very similar. And the lecture content is the same. Okay, the lecture content will be the same. Grad dip students. Now, the grad dip, please be aware of this. It is not an alternative to honours. Don't be confused by that. It is not. It is an alternative to a bachelor's degree. Once you've completed the grad dip, you still have to do honours or a fourth year to progress in your psychology education. Okay, so be really clear about that. It is not an honours alternative. It is a bachelor's alternative. It's technically what we call a bridging program. In other words, it's a bridge between your previous studies and honours. Okay, that's why it's called a bridging program. So it is different in that sense. So once you finish this, if you want to continue, you do have to apply and get into a undergraduate program. A fourth year program, an honours program. All right, how do you go about studying? There's your website, acap.edu.au. Get on the website, have a look. Now, look, let me just finish before I jump onto the chat and have a look at some of your questions. Let me just make a few points about this. As I said, I've worked at a lot of different universities. I've taught psychology for 35 years. Okay, I've been teaching psychology as a tutor and as a full-time academic. So I've got a pretty good handle on what psychology is all about. So why would you want to come to ACAP? Look, I think that there are a few things that do distinguish ACAP from other institutions where you might study psychology. One is the small classes. I think that's just great. You know, to be able to have small classes where the staff get to know you and you get to know them, that's a real benefit. That's a real bonus. Two, the whole place is geared around providing you with a very student-centered, good quality learning experience. You are our business. If we don't do a good job for you, we don't have a job. We don't have a business. Okay, so we would like to think that word of mouth is going to be really important. If we do a good job for you, if we help you with your learning, if we give you a good educational experience, that you will tell other people about us, and that we will be able to attract other students to come and study with us. You know, effectively, our students are our best marketing tool. Okay, if we give them a good experience, they will talk about that. They will go on and mention that to other people. And word of mouth is an incredibly important way that we can attract new students to come and study with us. We have outstanding teachers. I mean, very, very skilled, very dedicated, very hardworking, very student-centered, very responsive, very, very student learning focused individuals. We have teachers that have won teaching awards, national teaching awards, multiple national teaching awards. So they really do know their stuff. They're really, not only are they just experts in their areas, but they're experts at teaching. They're constantly trying to look at innovative ways to improve student learning. And I'm consistently, absolutely blown away by what my colleagues, my younger colleagues, come up with in terms of ideas to help students learn better, to provide extra support for students. And, you know, I'm the old guy on the block, you know, and I get dragged along in their wake, and I'm constantly picking up new skills myself. The flexibility, you know, the 3 terms we offer every unit in every term. So if you fail a unit for whatever reason, okay, you don't have to wait a whole year to repeat it, which is really common in other places. If you have to repeat a unit, you've got to often wait a year to be able to do it. Here, you don't have to do that. you usually only have to wait one term, or you might be able to do it the next term, or maximum wait one term. So there's lots of flexibility around that. You can move easily between full and part-time. The main campuses on ACAP, for those wanting to do on campus, are CBD located in Brisbane, Sydney, or Melbourne. They're very, very easy to get to by public transport. They're smack dab in the middle of the city. In Melbourne, we're at the corner of we're on Lonsdale Street. In Sydney, they're on Elizabeth Street, right near Museum Station. Brisbane, sorry, I don't know where Brisbane is, but I've been there. It certainly is right in the middle of the city as well. Perth as well is in Northbridge. So, we're very, very convenient in that area. We've got the double majors in counselling and criminology, which are very attractive to people. They give you lots of options. There's very, very few places around the country that do offer a double major with psych and criminology. There are a couple, but it's not common. Okay, there are more double majors with criminology, but very, very few with counselling. So that's something that we're offering that not a lot of places do have. I know ACU do, and I think Charles Sturt do, but very few places offer that as a combined degree. And I think the other thing is that we've just had all of our programs redesigned and reaccredited, and we think we've got a pretty darn good set of offerings for students at the moment. We'd like to think that what we're offering students really does represent the direction in which psychology is going in this country. Not just now, but we think we're future-proofed ourselves for the next 10 years. So I think there's a lot of reasons. And finally, we're very, very welcoming and accommodating students from an incredibly diverse range of backgrounds. Like I said, we're not full of school leavers. We're not, and people say, oh, you're working in a private place, you must have lots of international students. We've actually got very, very few. Well, nobody's got international students at the moment, but we've got very, very few international students. Not that we've got anything against international students. We'd love to have more international students. But international students don't tend to study psychology. It's not a popular area for international students. And they tend to go to big places like Melbourne and Monash. I completely understand that. So, you walk into an ACAP class, what are you going to see? You're going to see this mix of younger people, older people, but they're all drawn together by having this interest and this desire to study more about psychology, to learn more about human behaviour and mental states, and to hopefully progress to work in an area where they can use those skills in some way, be it as a psychologist or be it as some other area, some other related discipline. So look, they're my sort of parting words for you about this. I'll just check my clock. It's 10 to 7:47. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hop onto the chat and have a look at what some people have been writing. I know that there's been course advisors working with you throughout this session, answering any questions that you might have. I haven't looked at the questions yet. There's 99 plus questions there, so I might just hop on here and just scoot all the way back and just see whether there's any questions that I could answer that perhaps the course advisors aren't around. Sorry, that are a bit more sort of academically oriented. Yes, we did talk about the honours year. I've talked about the campuses that psychology is taught. Yes, at the moment, on-campus criminology is only taught on the Melbourne campus, but you can do the criminology units from anywhere in the country, but you can do them online. I've spoken about the campus. This session's about undergraduate programs. I really don't have time to talk about postgraduate programs, as in the master's type programs. Okay. Just excuse me, I'm flipping through this. Okay. Is there any programs that a high school student can do before joining ACAP? Yes, you can do. Well, it depends on what state you're in. Most states offer psychology as a secondary area of study. The only state that's holding out on that is New South Wales, and nobody knows why. So the only state in the country now that doesn't offer upper secondary school psychology is New South Wales, but you can do it at any other state of Australia as a secondary course. Minimum number of modules to be completed per trimester is 1. So if you do 1 unit, you maintain your enrolment. A few people have been asking questions about the postgraduate programs. That's not something I'm going to be talking about tonight. I don't have any involvement in the postgraduate programs. They're not my area of work. I focus exclusively on the undergraduate and honours level programs. So I'm sorry, I can't answer any questions you might have about the postgraduate programs, but there are certainly email addresses on the ACAP website for people who you can contact with any queries about the postgraduate programs. Okay. So somebody's mentioned that a good question. So if you suffer from both anxiety and depression, does that affect your ability to do the courses? Okay, one of the support services that ACAP runs is known as accessibility, and that's a service for people who do have a condition of some sort that may be impacting their studies that meets the legal definitions for getting these accommodations and supports. If you're eligible, and you can register with accessibility, and you will be able to discuss a range of accommodations for your studies to help you through. So that support is available. There we go. There we go. Miles is talking about accessibility. Fantastic. Okay. The grad cert can be done fully online. Yes, you can bring your current uni credits over with you. There is a process of recognition for prior learning that can be gone into. I might flip to the end and just see. No, the Masters in Psychotherapy and Counselling is a completely different degree that's run by the discipline of counselling, not by the discipline of psychology. Okay, so it looks as though most people here are getting their questions answered very well and very skillfully by our highly knowledgeable advisors, which is fantastic. That being the case, and given that it's 7:52, what I will do is I will leave the chat box open for people to continue asking questions until 8 o'clock. But what I'll do is I don't think there's anything here for me. There doesn't seem to be any questions that really require me to answer. But what I'd also recommend and encourage you that if you do have follow-up questions, or if there was a question that didn't get answered here that you think I could help you with, I am very, very happy to answer that question for you. And I'm just going to type my email address into the chat box for you. And I would strongly encourage you to fire me any emails if you have any follow-up questions. So if there's a question that you didn't get answered here tonight and you'd like to pose it to me, please feel free to email me at any time. I'll answer that question for you straight away. So if there's something that I didn't cover, if there's something that I didn't answer, if there's something that you're unclear about, or if there's something that one of the course advisors aren't able to answer for you because it's a bit more nuanced around the actual psychology content, please contact me. So it's john.reece, I'll put it in the chat box there, so john.reece at acap.edu.au, and I welcome any queries that you might have. All right, then, well, look, I'll wrap up my involvement here tonight, and again, thank you all very much for coming along. There's quite a lot of people here. We've got 55 people here still. We had over 100 at one point, which is great. And I hope you found that informative. I hope it answered some of your questions. I hope it gave you some food for thought. But I would really love to see you studying psychology here at ACAP with us. It is a great place to study, and I think if you did study here, you'd find it a very rewarding experience. So I'm going to just mute myself and block my video, but I will leave the chat open for the next 5 minutes, in case anybody's got any questions that they may have for the course advisors, who will still be online with you until 8 o'clock, and then 8 o'clock I will stop the recording. So have a good evening, everybody. Hope you found it useful, and all the very, very best with your future study decisions, whatever they may be.